AM 1460, the new WXBR. You are listening to the Metro South Morning Program. Peter Zimbor here with you this morning. And joining me right now via the telephone is the bass player for the legendary rock band Kansas, who has another band known as Seventh Key. They have a new album out called I Will Survive. We welcome to the program Mr. Billy Greer. Billy, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Peter. How are you this morning?
I'm doing excellent this morning. Let's talk about your band, Seventh Key, which just released an album. As I mentioned, you've been in the band Kansas. Now, you actually joined that band in the mid-'80s, well after Kansas had already established themselves as a prominent musical act. What's the difference between joining a group that's already established and being in a group like Seventh Key that you were one of the founders of?
Well, it's basically the money that you make.
All right.
But I joined Steve Walsh in the early '80s. He left the band Kansas. He quit and formed his own band called Streets, and I was with Steve Walsh in that band. And it was only after we recorded a couple of albums for Atlantic with the band Streets that we broke up, and then Kansas was getting back together after they had broken up for a while, and Steve went back as the lead singer, and I kind of went back on his coattails as a new bass player. So that was my road to Kansas. But living in Steve Walsh's shadow, which is a pretty big shadow, vocally I respect the heck out of him. He's one of my favorite singers in rock and roll. And I just had to break away at some point to showcase my own talents, and that's how Seventh Key came to pass. And so it's just my way of getting my musical, getting my musical rocks off, if you will.
Now, Seventh Key's debut album came out in 2001. How often have you toured with the band Seventh Key? Because I can imagine that you guys can put Kansas on a marquee anywhere, and people will show up. Seventh Key, not as well-known of a name, obviously. What's it been like kind of hitting it from the ground level up and hitting the road and playing to people who might not be aware of what your music is?
Well, the thing is it was more or less meant to be just a studio project. And we did do a live DVD in Atlanta, and we have done one concert in Germany. And basically that's, for the most part, that's all it's been. We have, since Kansas, that's my bread and butter, so I have to keep my time open for whenever Kansas, a gig can come up at any time, and I have to be open to be able to take that gig. The livelihoods of all the other guys depend on that. So that, and until I'm ready to quit the band, or if the band picks up, or I decide to leave and tour with Seventh Key, that's going to be the case. So there really hasn't been much touring with Seventh Key.
Let me ask you about this, because Seventh Key, I don't like using this term because a lot of musicians seem to take offense to it, but is it in fact a side project, or is it just sort of another project you'd like to do just to keep yourself occupied when Kansas is not occupied? Well,
it's me looking to the future. It's my way of getting to get outside of, like I said, the confines of Kansas. Basically, I've only written one song that appeared on a Kansas record. It was kind of a closed shop as far as writing is concerned. Basically, it was Kerry or Steve or the two of them. So the writing process, since I've been in the band and what albums I've been have worked on, I just didn't feel like my music was given much consideration. So it was my opportunity to get on a label and perform my songs and sing lead, and also to work with Mike Slamer, who is the producer and engineer and co-writer of all the songs on the record. He played with me in the band Streets, and that's how I know Mike.
Once again, we're chatting with Billy Greer here on AM 1460, the new WXBR, bass player for the rock band Kansas and also a member of the band Seventh Key, who have a new album out available on iTunes, Amazon, and places of that nature. It's called I Will Survive. Billy, coming into the band Kansas in the mid-'80s, replacing some established members of the band with other folks as well, sort of a new lineup of the group. At first, was there any backlash? And at this point, nearly or over a quarter century later, does it really even matter to the fans who are coming to see Kansas live, in your opinion?
There are some Kansas purists out there that will never recognize me as the bass player of Kansas, to be honest with you. I was reading a comment on Facebook. Someone had posted a picture of the band, which included Steve Morse on guitar, myself on bass, Steve Walsh, Bill Ehart, and Richard Williams. It was our first tour when we were playing some festival shows over in Germany. And a guy, commented after he saw the picture, yeah, they're a great band. I love this band, but not particularly this lineup or the 80s sound that they had. But, a lot of people have accepted me for goodness sake. I've been there for 29 years. I've been there almost twice as long as the original guy was there, Dave Hope. But Dave's a good friend of mine. We've actually even toured together on a German tour and would switch off playing bass and singing and stuff like that. So it's not like, there's ill feelings at all. But, Dave and Kerry went off and formed a Christian rock band, and that's why they left Kansas. And, that was the platform that they were looking for, and that worked for them. So when Steve came back, I came back as the bass player, and that's just, like it or not, that's the way it's been for 29 years now.
So it's not like when David Lee Roth left Van Halen, he says, Sammy Hagar was a singer in Van Halen. I am the singer in Van Halen. It's not like this contentious relationship at all. You guys get along just well?
Well, we get along fine. I mean, Dave and I are the best. He couldn't ask for a nicer, humbler guy than Dave Hope. But it's just there are some bands who won't accept the lineup, even with David Ragsdale, the violin player who replaced Robbie Steinhardt, who retired a few years ago. He's not accepted as the original member. For some people, there are purists out there who, Kansas is Kerry Livgren and Dave Hope and the rest of the guys, Robbie Steinhardt. So, but that's okay. I don't mind. I understand that. I was a Kansas fan before I was a member of Kansas. So, my only regret is I never got to hear the original band play live with Steve Walsh. I got to hear it when they got the new singer, John Elfonte, but that never was Steve Walsh.
Now, we mentioned at the top of the interview, I asked you what the difference is between being in a band starting out as opposed to a band that was already well established, and I think you only half-jokingly said the money. I think you were dead serious, actually. I'm sure the money's much better in Kansas than releasing albums independently.
Well, too, though, I was kind of guaranteed at least an allotment of fans that carried over from my involvement with Kansas. So that kind of gave me a leg up on completely starting and not having nobody having a clue of who I am. So people didn't know me from the band Kansas. It was like you said in 2000. So I had been in the band for 13 years. So there were people who were aware of me. So that gave me a leg up and some interest. And plus, on the first album, we ended up using some songs that Kansas had demoed in the studio. So I had performances from all the guys in Kansas on about 4 songs on the first 7th Key record. Phil Ehart was playing drums, Rich was playing guitar, Steve was playing keyboards, and for the most part he was singing them as well. So we had to redo the vocals, and I would redo the vocal part and sing it. And so 4 of those songs on the first album were old Kansas demos, which didn't hurt things. It kind of perked the interest up of a lot of bands out there.
Now, 7th Key has strictly existed in what has been a digital age of music. You guys do predate iTunes, but you guys were there when Napster and file sharing became prominent in the early 2000s. What's it been like being a part of a band in the music industry when people aren't exactly going to the store, buying albums, buying CDs, buying cassettes?
Yeah,
people are downloading music nowadays.
It's amazing, even from when I first did my first record in 2000 to today, how few people actually buy CDs anymore, and who just do digital downloads. And the thing is when I did my first record with Frontiers Records, we had nothing in the contract regarding digital downloads. So there was no language at all. I mean, that just wasn't an issue. iTunes hadn't really come into play yet, or any of the other digital downloads, or Amazon, where you pay 99 cents or $8.99 for an album, that kind of thing. So we had to reconstruct the contract to be able to come to some kind of digital download agreement, especially for this new record. It's been about 7 or 8 years since I had done a studio record. So we had to renegotiate the contract to include those little fine points.
Looking at it from another perspective, how has the internet helped out a band like Kansas, which predates the internet and the digital age of music by many, many years? Has it helped rekindle interest in the group from generations which may have never heard of the band?
Absolutely. With YouTube, all the videos of Kansas that you can find on YouTube, and also not only that, but there's the video games. Kansas has had songs on video games. So we had a whole new generation of young kids that were playing, Rock Band and what was the Guitar Hero that had a Kansas song on it. So we have fans who've discovered us just from playing those video games. But for the most part, we've had a lot of our really hardcore fans who've raised their children listening to Kansas music. So that's all they've heard their whole life. So we've got even from the older fans who are in their 60s and later, down to the people that aren't even teenagers yet. There's a pretty broad spectrum of fans we have.
What's the most unique place where you have seen something that you've played on used in any form of media, whether it be television, movies, video games, as you mentioned? What's the most interesting place you said, I can't believe the song I'm playing on is here?
Well, it was an episode of South Park where the kids were sitting around playing Carry On Wayward Son. Actually, it was a Guitar Hero, using the little plastic guitar things or simulated guitars. And the father comes in and he says, "You kids like that? But I know how to play that, for real on a real guitar." And I thought, this is not happening. And he goes and gets his guitar and he starts playing the song for real on guitar. And the fat kid, whatever his name is, says, "You suck."
Sounds like a kid from South Park. You suck.
Yeah, you suck.
There you go. Cartman. That was a Cartman impression. I could tell by your impersonation, Billy. That was good.
Thank you.
Now, is there versions? There are versions out there of "Carry On My Wayward Son" that you actually played on, because that song predates you joining the band, correct?
Yeah, it does. The only thing, we've done a couple of live DVDs that I've played "Carry On," but for the most part, and we found this to be the case pretty much throughout the history of the band, is that people won't play new versions of older songs that are hits. We did a version of "Dust in the Wind" with the London Symphony backing us up, and we thought radio would be all over it, with the whole orchestra backing up in "Dust in the Wind," and nobody would touch it. So that seems to be the case kind of across the board. There are very few stations out there that will play new songs by old artists or new albums by old artists, unless you're in the satellite business, XM and Sirius and stuff like that. And maybe stations like yourself. You've got a few brave stations out there that aren't controlled strictly by the corporate office, playlist and stuff.
We are independently owned and operated, Billy. It's a blank canvas that we get to paint with, and we enjoy it.
Well, isn't that special? That's great.
It's great indeed. We thank the fine folks at Azure Media for that. We're chatting with Billy Greer of the band Kansas, who's also in the band Seventh Key here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. So at this point in time, is Kansas strictly a touring band? You guys still like to get together and play new material every now and then?
We are pretty much strictly a touring band. The only thing, we celebrate our 40th anniversary this year, and the only special thing that we really going to do, we did a fan appreciation concert in Pittsburgh, and we were going to bring in all 6 original members of Kansas and get them on stage once more to play, if nothing else, 1 or 2 songs. And about 2 weeks before the concert, Robby had a heart attack and ended up in the hospital. So we got 5 of the 6. Dave and Carrie came in, and we had a really good night. The current lineup did an opening set with an orchestra backing us up, And then we took an intermission, and then we started bringing out Dave and Carrie and playing stuff, and we all ended up on stage at one point. So it was really, really a neat concert. After the show, we made ourselves available to all the fans that came. We sat there for probably 2.5, 3 hours signing memorabilia and these special ticket things that we had printed up to for that particular show. So anybody that wanted an autograph from all the members, we were there.
Any chance that formation or that reunion of all the original members will still happen at some point?
Well, I don't see it happening because Robby is still recuperating. We saw him recently. He was in the hospital for 52 days, but and I don't know that he's been able to, he practice or pick up his violin for quite a while, but he's still recovering. And from this, he had a lot of things physically wrong with him, so had a real rough go of it. He was in the hospital for a long, long time, long recovery. But Carrie also had some health problems. He had a stroke about 4 or 5 years ago, so he's still kind of recovering from that. He was able to, play guitar only by using a thumb pick. He still has loss of feeling in his right side of his body and his hands in particular, and can't really hold a pick the way he wants to. So, but gosh, we're just getting old. It's not easy growing up old. It's a tough thing to do. But,
it happens to the best and worst of us, though.
Yeah, but I'd like to invite everybody to check out my website, billygreer.com, and then you can hear samples of all my music right there and check up on what's going on, as well as kansasband.com and on our Facebook page, Kansas. So I appreciate anybody to take the time to check those things out.
Well, we encourage the folks to check out billygreer.com, kansasband.com, and check you out on various forms of social media as well. We've been chatting with Billy Greer from Kansas and Seventh Key here on WXBR. Seventh Key's new album, I Will Survive, is available now. You mentioned earlier that Seventh Key is more of a studio band as opposed to a touring band because you need to be available for Kansas when it's their time to tour. Why not tour together at some point? Is that something possible?
Well, that was what I was going to say. That's another bright idea. Why don't I just open up for Kansas? It's funny that actually we shot a video for the first single off the new album, off the Seventh Key album, and the keyboard player who I've used in my live DVD and also in the video is David Mannion, and David just happens to be the lighting guy for Kansas, and Eric Holmquist is the drum tech, and he used him in the video as well. So I have two other members of the Seventh Key members are already working for Kansas. So all we have to do is get Mike out of the studio and probably add one more guy and be there and prepared to open up for Kansas. We kind of did that already. 4 of the 5 members of Kansas, everybody except for Steve Walsh, we went in the studio and recorded an album called Native Window about 4 years ago, and we opened up for ourselves. Native Window would open up for Kansas, and we'd do like a 35-40-minute set, take a break, and then come back out as Kansas. Kind of like, I think Grateful Dead have done that in the past, and some other bands, different inversions of the band or whatever, different projects that they were involved in would open up for the main act. But that's a possibility. That's something I'm going to look into.
Someday you can open and close for yourself, Billy.
Yeah, that would be awesome, wouldn't it?
That would be great. That's Billy Greer of Kansas and Seventh Key joining us here on WXBR. The Seventh Key album is I Will Survive. The website is billygreer.com for more information. Billy, any final words for our listeners before I let you go this morning?
Well, I just appreciate all the fans out there for all the support for all the years, for Seventh Key or for Kansas or for whatever project I've been involved in over the years. And I have been involved in other projects as well that people have known me for. So just thank you for the support. Hang in there.
That's Billy Greer joining us here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. We will step aside for a quick break. Mike Pava brings us news update after this.